All right, we're back. We are Game 3001. That's Artificial Intelligence at George Brown. And we are in the summer 2019 semester in week 1, part 2 of our broadcast. We're going to be talking about the challenge that's been accepted and the challenge solution. Let's talk about that challenge solution a little bit now. So I asked you before the break to download some kind of image and make it move down the screen, similar to, let's say, an island or something like that. In order for you to do that, I asked you to make a game object that inherits from the game object superclass. How do we do it? So, two things. One, I've downloaded this image called ship.png. Ship.png is just a PNG with a transparent background. It looks like this. Pretty simple. Right? That's the image. So that's the one I'm going to be loading up. It's inside of the, right now I've placed it inside the assets textures folder. Okay. So what I want to do, let's just close all this stuff down for now. What I want to do is I want to prepare for it. So the first thing I want to do, and I'm going to talk about problems with a solution. The problems that we have sometimes is when we add items in, like people have noticed before, or automatically through add item or add class, what happens is they go in the wrong spots. And when they go in the wrong spots, we don't have any references to some of the other classes that we're creating. So let's create a new class. I'm going to go to my headers file, right click, I'm going to make add, and if I go new class, class comes on the quick pick area. You can also go add new item. If I go add new item, you can see that I can do a class, a header file, and a CPP file separately. I can do that too. If I click class, I can also specify where it's going to be added. This is important, right? On the bottom, if I specify where I can browse, notice where it's taking me, template. That is incorrect. You don't want to go there. What you want to do is you want to go into your source folder or SRC folder. This is where I want my classes to be created, right? So I'm going to click select folder. And now you can see that this new class I'm going to create is going to go inside of this SRC folder automatically. It's going to save me some time. So here in my class, I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call it ship with a capital H because everything else has been named with a capital, just to keep in line with what my naming convention is. I'm going to click add. It's going to bring me here. It's going to say, okay, you want to add a ship. I'm going to give you a ship.h file and a ship.cpp file. Now we're going to do some copying, but what I also want to do here is my base class, I know, is game object, right? So I can put my base class in there as well. Are you with me? Yes. These are basics when I add a class, okay? Now, if I press OK, if everything goes well, my Visual Studio should not crash. Sometimes, by the way, crashes, right? But if it doesn't, we should be okay. So it doesn't. And now you can notice that even though I did that, I have this weird error happening. Look, I'm saying that my ship class derives from my game object superclass, and I'm just not seeing it, right? Here's my game object, but somehow it's not jiving. Why? Even though I told it where to look and where to put stuff. Did it put it there? That's the question.
I know why. I think I know why.
Tell me.
Because game object is just a header. You need to put it into a certain file. So what I have here in my drive, I put it in user/owner/download/template version 2 again. Source file game object.header.
Yeah, that's what I did too. But if you look, if I go into my version 2, and if I go into SRC, where is my ship? Not here. Even though I specified where I wanted to look. I wanted to look right here. Didn't put it there. It put it here. This is wrong, man. This is wrong. I'm never going to run. So going back to here, what I need to do right away is I need to close these things down, right? And I need to remove my ship from my headers, remove. I'm also going to remove my ship from my CPP, remove. And then I'm going to take these two items inside my physical operating system files in the folder. I'm going to cut them. I'm going to go up a step inside of SRC and then paste them, Control V. Now they're in there, right? Now that I've done this, that the new files I've created are inside the same folder. So this is the way I set up my template, by the way. Now, there's other ways to set up the template that doesn't have to do this, and it'll do different things. The reason why I'm doing it this way is because it's just easier for us to find and reference everything.
Sorry, how do you transfer the files from
My template
to
SRC,
SRC? Yeah.
cut, paste. All right, so now notice that they're not here. Even though they're inside my folders inside my operating system, I've got to make references to them inside the header files and source files, filters. That's what these things are, just filters, right? So I want to right-click on my header files and add existing item, and I'm going to choose, see, notice where it takes me here by default. I don't want to go there. I want to go to my SRC folder, and I want to go down to ship.h and click add. And then I want to go down to my source files, right-click, add existing item, and I want to go into my ship.cpp here, inside my template source file, and add. And now I have both of those added in the right places. And if you notice now, no errors. That's step one, guys. If you don't do that, you'll never be able to do my challenge, right? It won't run properly, put it that way. Now, there's other ways to solve this problem that I'm not going to handle today. We're going to handle it another day because we're going to modify the properties of my project in order for us to look in the right places. Okay, for now, we're not going to do that.
Oh, okay, now I see ship.
Yes. All right, so now that we have here, we have our ship. I know that I want to inherit from my game object superclass, right? That's what I want to do. And if I go to quick actions and refactorings, what it'll do is, it says I can implement my pure virtuals for base game object. Take a look at that, right? So again, how did I get there? I went to game object, I right-clicked, and I went to quick actions and refactorings.
Yes.
Sure.
I did what instructed me from some can't access my ship header. It keeps mentioning document cannot be opened. It has to be.
So you have to remove it and re-add it.
So
yeah, remove your ship. So right-click and remove, and then it's going to give you a little bit of an error. Just ignore it, and then put it back in. Right-click header files and add existing item. Okay, so if I right-click on my game object, I can go quick actions and refactorings, and I click on this, which is implement pure virtuals for base game object. Then it does this automatically. How come? How come? How come it did that automatically? Well, because these are inherited from game object, right? So because in my game object superclass, right? So here's my game object superclass. I said that these are pure virtual functions, right? Then in my ship.h, if I right-click on my game object and I go to quick actions refactorings and I do this, it's going to install these as overrides, okay? Now, notice right away that I have them as overrides. They're virtual, right? But the challenge is that there's no definition, right? Because of this override function. If I go do this, let me undo that. Here's a question for you. And maybe you know this, maybe you don't. Can I do this? Can I just do override void draw? Is that possible? And why do you think it's giving me an error? Right. First of all, is it void override or override void? What is it? Liam, do you know? So think about this for a second. If I go to I'm going to leave this for a second. I'm going to go to my player class. My player class does this, void, right? However, my island class does this, void override, like this. This is okay. Nothing's wrong with this, right? And if I go to the definition for these, if I go to definition, you can see that I can define them here, right? So I want to do something like this in my ship class. So I'm just going to do that, change. So virtual void override. But what I want to do is these don't have a body right now. They're empty, right? So if I look at my ship.cpp class, you can see that the draw, update, and clean functions, there's nothing inside of them. But they've been created for me. Look, that did so much work for me. I don't have to even think about doing that by hand. That's like number one. Next, I know that in my island, I had a couple of other functions. I had a move, a check bounds, and a reset. Now, my bad, I should have put m underscore move and m underscore check bounds and so on, right? But for now, I'm just going to copy these three private functions. I'm going to copy them from the island.h file. I'm going to put them inside my ship.h file in the private section, which doesn't exist yet. I'm going to go private. Inside here, I'm going to put them in, right? And to keep with convention, what I want to do is I'm going to use m underscore, m underscore, m underscore. That's the right way to do it, okay? Now, notice that there's little curlies. These little curlies say, hey, you can install them. So I'm going to click on the little light bulb and go create definition. I can do that. It automatically creates it for me. So I go here, right click. I can do quick actions and refactorings and create definition. I can do that. Here it is. Or I can also just go here and there's a little light bulb here and I can do that here. Create definition. What this does is in my ship.cpp, it automatically creates those functions for me. And I don't have to do any finger typing problems. I won't have any finger typing issues, okay? If that makes sense. Cool. I have the structure that I want to some degree. Now, I don't need this open anymore. So gameobject.h I don't need because I've already included it, right, in my ship.h. Here it is. However, this is no good. Remember we talked about the preprocessor commands? What I want to do is, if I go to my island as an example, here's my island. And my island.h, notice I have this if not defined. Now we talked about this. So I want to kind of copy these things. And I can always type them as well, but copying is a little easier right now. I want to go to the top. And in my preprocessor commands, I want to change this from island to ship. So I want to check to make sure that I only have one copy of the ship class available to me at any one time. I don't want to do any cyclical references. And again, from island, I want to go down to here and end if, because that's the other, the end of the preprocessor directive, right? There we go. Go down here. And of course, I want to make sure that this is this says ship, not island. This is just my comments, but I want to be consistent. All right, so I've got this. If not define ship, then define ship. And on the bottom, end if. So this makes sure that I don't have cyclical references. Are we good so far? I know I want to draw my ship, and I might have sounds for my ship. So I need to include texture manager and sound manager. I can certainly type them in, but I already have examples here in my island.h. So my island.h, I can just copy this texture manager and sound manager reference, and then put those in. Okay, pretty straightforward. Again, just copying and pasting operation right now. Okay, that's good. I also, in my island.h, if you notice, I have all of this. I think I'm pretty good on my h file, right? But if I look at my island.cpp file, there's also something else at the top that I mentioned, which is I have to make a reference to my game.h file. Now, here's a question for you. Liam, I'm going to refer to you again because you're the coder of the group, right? Just because I made you the coder of the group today. Tomorrow it's going to be Nick, I don't know, or somebody else. But tell me why I'm using the game.h here and not in the island.h file. So why is it in the CPP file and not in the .h file? What's the difference? Why would I do it that way? Okay, but why am I doing it here? Why don't I just put that in the same .h file? I mean, the .h file includes too, look. Why don't I put that here? Actually, the reason why is it creates a cyclical reference. Because my game.h is including my island, and my island includes my game.h, it does this. It's a kind of, and if I include them both in the .h files, that's bad. However, in the CPP file, it only gets called once, right? For references only. It's only for references. It's not, I'm not calling it back from itself, right? So there's different ways of doing this, but a reason why I do it like this is because it reduces any kind of problem when it comes to cyclical references. All right, so that's this. So I've got my structure started. In my island.cpp, notice in my island constructor, I have all this. I'm going to copy this, all this stuff here. I'm not going to use everything, but I'm going to talk about it. So I'm going to copy this inside of my ship constructor. Now notice that my island was called island, but I can't use the same nice word for my texture or a friendly term. I need to use something else. I'm going to call it ship. I'm also going to load up my ship, not my island. This is going to change. So my path has changed too. So it's going to take my ship texture and load it into the texture map that exists in the texture manager and store it there for me to use. So I can have as many ships as I want. Next, I want to change the texture size. I want to pull the texture size of my ship for collision purposes. I want to know how wide and how tall my texture is, right? Automatically. Also, I'm getting this little error here because I renamed my reset function to m_reset, and so I have to change this back. Here's something, I got this sound, but you know what? I'm not going to use the yay sound. I don't know what sound I'm going to use right now, but not the yay sound. So for now, I'm just going to comment this part out. All right, so that's kind of this thing. That also, here's something else. My set type. Can I say that the ship is an island? No, right? So inside of my Solution Explorer, I have to go to my GameObject superclass, and inside there, remember we talked about the enumeration? I don't have a ship type. Let's add it in. I'm going to say my type is of type ship. Why am I doing that? Because I can detect different types when I'm colliding. And then, if I go back into my ship.cpp, I can simply just change this set type to ship. Is now it exists. By default, my velocity, how fast I go down from my island, is 5. Well, let's make it 3 for my ship, so it's really slow so we can see it. Cool, so I've got everything set up so that the ship loads into the texture manager, but it hasn't moved yet. I need to change my draw and update and move and check bounds and reset functions so that they're almost identical to the island ones. So if I go to my island.cpp, you can see that this is almost going to be identical except for the draw is going to draw a ship, not an island. Let's do this. I'm going to go into my island, my ship.cpp, and inside my draw function, I'm just going to kind of copy and paste that in. Now, again, I'm repeating my code. So there's ways, if you think about this, to create templates so it can even reduce the code duplication even more. But for now, it's okay. Next, I'm going to go into my island.cpp again. I'm going to go back into my move and check bounds functions. And now they're renamed. I got to move, basically moves the ship around every frame. And check bounds checks to see if the ship is moved outside the boundaries of the screen. That's what it's going to do. I'm going to copy these two. I'm going to go back into my ship.cpp and put them into my update function. Except, guess what? They're named m_move and m_checkbounds to adhere to the pattern, the code style that I want. All right, now I'm going to go into the move function. So in my island.cpp, I have the move function. I'm going to take these two things identical now, copy paste. There's no difference here, and put that into the ship.cpp. So what this does is it says, hey, my new position is I want to get the current position of the ship and add its velocity. I'm adding a velocity to the ship's position. And then I'm going to set position this new position that I created. So it's actually going to add a vector to the position of the ship every frame. So it's going to move down. Okay? And then back to island.cpp. I want to check to see if my position, the Y position, is greater than 480 plus get height, which means I want to check to see if when the ship moves off screen, and when it does, I want it to recall reset. So this is, I'm copying this one, and I'm putting it back inside the ship.cpp, right here. Except that my reset should be called m_reset. That's what we renamed it. And the last function we're going to copy is this one. And we're going to copy this exactly. Oops. All right, so what is this saying? It's saying, well, first of all, by default, when I reset my ship, set the colliding to false, so I'm not colliding anymore, okay? Make sure that the half the width is equal to the get width function times 0.5. I'm checking the width again. There's reasons for this, as well as I want to recalculate the X component every frame, so when it resets, I'm going to have a different position across the top of the screen. It's not going to be the same all the time. That's what this rand function does, all right? And then for the Y component, I'm going to set it to negative get height. So basically what I'm doing is I'm putting it off screen at a height of the actual object, the ship. So whenever it resets, it's going to reset itself off screen fully. That's what it does, okay? And then I'm going to set the position to the X component and the Y component. I've calculated them here, and I'm setting the position initially when I reset to those things. That is the ship class, my friends. My ship class is complete. However, it doesn't work. I have to add it to my game class, right? Because my game class is the thing that controls everything. So I'm going to go back to my Solution Explorer, and I'm going to go to my game class, my game.h. And in my game.h, there's a couple things I got to do. One is I got to include my ship.h file inside here. So I'm going to say something like include, I know we're running out of time, ship.h. So if you have a little bit more time, stick with me. If you don't, if you have to go, I'm recording it, you can see it later, right? And then if I scroll down, you can see that I also want to create a game object. So I want to say that, okay, well, ship, it's a ship pointer. I want to make a ship pointer called m_p ship, right? So I want to reference the ship itself when I move it around the screen. That's on the game.h. On the game.cpp, I'm almost done. On the game.cpp, notice that I have this object, and layering in STL works like this. The first object you add to the renderer is the bottom layer by default, right? And as I add other objects on top, for example, notice that I'm instantiating here, but when I draw, I want to draw in the right order. Here, I'm just going to instantiate my ship, m_p ship, is equal to a new ship object, ship pointer. All right, so I instantiate my ship here in my create game object. And then inside of my renderer, I'm going to draw my ship, but I'm going to draw it after everything else. Why? Because I want my ship to hover above the clouds. So again, my ocean is drawn first. That's the first layer. Then my island on top of the ocean. Then my plane on top of the island. Then my clouds on top of the plane. And then my ship on top of the clouds. I want the ship to be the top, right? So I want to do that. I'm going to say that m_p ship is, I want to draw. I'm going to call the draw function of the ship class, right? There it is. And then what I want to do is every frame, I want to update the position of the ship. So I'm going to say m_p ship and then update. I'm going to call the update function of the ship. There we go. And that's it. Now, it sounds like a lot, but I really took a long time explaining everything. You could probably take care of this in a much shorter time. Yes? Which part? This? So again, this update function, what this thing does is it triggers every frame, right? So what I'm saying is call the game's update function, which in turn calls each of the game objects update functions. And so the game objects update themselves and draw themselves. That's what they do. Okay? So again, first step is making sure that your game object exists in the right folder. Second step is you instantiate all the pieces of your game object, you include all the, or configure your game object so it loads the right texture and it has the right behavior, okay? We're going to do more about this, don't worry. I just wanted to make the ship today with you, right? And the next thing is you have to include it inside your game class, right? Because the game class doesn't know about it. Even if I make a game object called ship, if I don't include it, if I don't instantiate it, it's never been created. It's just an object that exists in my files, right? So then once I include it here, I have to set the render and update function and the create object. And then if I run it, it should work like this. If I did everything correctly, let's see. And if I didn't, it'll give me an error and I'll figure it out. Hey, there's the ship. Notice there's no collision because I didn't define the collision detection algorithm, but it flies above everything else, right? It flies way above everything, and it flies backwards too, because you notice the ship is actually supposed to fly the other way around, right? And there we go. Notice there's no collision. I can't collide with a ship, see? And also notice it tells you when it collides with a cloud, right? And it collides and makes the noise exactly once, okay? So that's the challenge. You can always look this up again. I'm also going to put this up on GitHub. So there's a couple of links I'm going to give you. One of the links I'm going to give you today is a link to my YouTube playlist. It's going to be up on Blackboard by the end of today, as well as a link to the GitHub repo that I'm using for these files. So you can always download them and try them on your own. Now the problem with GitHub, I got to be honest with you, okay? They do not include some of the DLLs. They get, for whatever reason, excluded from GitHub. So if you're going to download my project, you'd have to drag and drop the DLLs into the bin folder, or the whole bin folder across, or else it won't work. Okay? Questions? Guys, I have office hours after 12 o'clock on Tuesdays with you. So if you want to meet with me in office hours or discuss a problem or a question, we can always meet after that, after our class for game production, for those people who have game production with me. Okay? Otherwise, guys, thank you so much. I'll see you next week. We're going to do more of this stuff. Don't panic if you didn't get this one. We're going to do more and more until you're more comfortable with it. Okay? Good luck tomorrow with object-oriented programming.